Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Superman and Lois Season 3, and this is going to be my review for Episode 7, I think it is, otherwise entitled Forever and Always. But of course, spoiler alert, if you've not watched this episode, you might continue on with the video because, well, you have plans to continue on with the video because there's some big reveals, especially towards the end. One of them is probably just more of a big confirmation because it's a theory that a lot of people had. But then there's a bigger reveal, which I'm very intrigued to see how it connects to other things in the past because I did not expect it. It completely caught me off guard. And I was like, oh, God, wait, that was always there? Anyway, we're going to talk about it. But of course, if you have watched the episode, you are continuing on, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on the episode, what you like, what you didn't like, any theories and stuff moving forward. Always curious to hear what you guys have to say about the episode in the comments. And of course, you're going to enjoy the video, you enjoyed the episode, drop a like on the video to show your support. So last episode sort of had Clark coming to the reality of Lois's situation and her vulnerability around the whole cancer situation and all that, with Lois also looking more into the Bruno Mannheim situation and his control over Hobbs Bay. Now, we also did get the debut of Jordan's supersuit in the episode as he does try to help his, well, dad or Superman against Onomatopoeia, with Jordan being shot by, I guess, like a kryptonite shotgun, essentially. That's pretty much what it was. But it doesn't really affect him like it would Superman. Now, that's not really touched upon in this episode at all. I was sort of surprised it wasn't, but maybe that's for maybe later in the season and a bigger reveal down the track. But right at the end of the episode, Onomatopoeia is actually revealed as Bruno Mannheim's wife, Pia, the woman that has been going through cancer treatment alongside Lois. But Pia is feeling that, you know, what they are trying to do to get her better isn't working overly well. And we, as the audience, are assuming it's just like this process that he would be doing to give, you know, all these people powers like Henry Miller and DeStefano, or whatever his name was, in the episode previous to that one. So that's what we assumed. But this episode sort of changes it up a bit. But yeah, this episode had some flashbacks, which was really cool to see, just to sort of flesh out the world. There wasn't too much of it. I thought it was going to be maybe like a half episode. But it's only like, I think, 3 sequences, I think, of flashbacks. So maybe that happens more in episodes to come. I'm not too sure. But I think this episode is like the turning point episode of the season where things start to get real and we start to dial up the dial to 11 potentially, especially the back half and the cliffhanger for the episode. This was the exact halfway point of the season, episode 7 out of a 13 episode season. So it's an episode you expect sort of like the back half to be completely set up. And I think they did it really well. But to start off the episode, we had Lois struggling through some illness and just even in like Lois's physical appearance, I guess you could say, you can tell that she is getting worse off. And the boys of Jonathan and Jordan are noticing it as well. And they just know that information is being withheld with them. And they're going to try and, you know, let themselves get some knowledge within them in regards to what's happening. So Jonathan and Jordan do go to the Fortress of Solitude to discuss their mother's illness with their grandmother and just whether their dad brought Lois there to, you know, look over her, you know, with all the Kryptonian tech and all that stuff. With Jonathan specifically being frustrated that this didn't happen and doesn't flow with the excuses that are being given to him, like, oh, well, we just didn't want to do it. Jonathan's like, well, I don't buy that. You know, mum's sick. Mum could die from this. Do the most you can do, which is sort of like you get a bit of a juxtaposition, a bit of a parallel with what Bruno's doing in this episode as well and how far he's going with it. Now, as I said, we did get some flashbacks in this episode with Bruno Mannheim and Pia specifically in their days while working for Boss Moxie. Now, I think we see Boss Moxie. I don't think Boss Moxie was the guy, the younger dude. I don't think it was. I don't think they refer to him as that. But there was a guy on the table who looked like Boss Moxie from the comics, so I'm not too sure if we actually see Boss Moxie in this episode. I don't know. Maybe we do. I'm not too sure. If we did, let me know. I don't know if they actually refer to anyone in the actual episode that we see on screen as Boss Moxie, but if they do, let me know. But Lex Luthor is brought up in conversations when talking about the control of Metropolis. So Lex has this big portion and Boss Moxie has this other portion, with like Bruno bringing up, you know, how they can, you know, take one specific area of control, give the rest to Lex, and they can make this specific area their own and build it up exactly the way they want. He brings this up with other members of Moxie's operations, though he doesn't really have that much power in that circle and is sort of turned away. But Bruno is like not really happy about this, so you can tell he's going to keep pushing along. Now, in the present day, we do have Lois, like, I guess, similar to what Bruno was doing in the flashbacks, pushing, but she's pushing Pia with questioning about Bruno Mannheim, and her suspicions sort of frustrate Pia to the point where she just distances herself from Lois, going to sit elsewhere while getting the cancer treatment or the chemo treatment. And Lois sort of starts to not trust her own instincts and just sort of whether she is going along the right path or not, and sort of merging work into personal relationships again and causing divides and putting, walls between people. So Clark decides to assist, but not as Superman, but as Clark Kent, the reporter, by going to talk to Bruno Mannheim himself, which I did think was a really good thing to do, because like Clark has done some reporting stuff, but even then, like early in the season, it was mainly Lois doing it, and Clark was there as Superman, and more like Clark was maybe like assisting as the Clark Kent persona, but outside of the reporting side. It was more like, oh, I'll take you, Lois, we'll go to Metropolis, and then he's Superman once he's in Metropolis. So it was really cool to see him actually beat Clark Kent, and I do wonder if we're going to get more of this. I think you might wait until maybe Lex Luthor comes into it. I'm not too sure, but I did like we got some of it, because I feel like that's something that we thought we were going to get more of this season, and it's been sort of there, but not really there at the same time. It's definitely been like a minor thing this season when we thought it might have been a bigger thing. Now, in the sit down with Bruno Mannheim, Clark is sort of able to, I guess, like tap into Bruno's staunch defense and reasoning for his financing of Hobbs Bay Medical, and just sort of using how much Clark would do to save Lois's life as backing for what he was doing, which definitely suggested that someone he deeply cares about is a patient at Hobbs Bay, with more digging and stretches, these stretches of experimenting on criminals, sort of confirming that suggestion to Clark. And Clark's like, okay, well, you're comparing my wife to the situation. Is it your wife as well? Now, elsewhere in the episode, we did have Mateo joining Natalie and John Henry for lunch. We knew Mateo was coming back to Smallville in this episode. I think it was on the synopsis. I think it was. But John pushes questions about Mateo sort of traveling all the way to Smallville from Metropolis multiple times, just sort of feeling suspicious about it, which does frustrate Natalie, though it is sort of more John, I guess, being suspicious, but also being very defensive over his daughter at the same time. But I mean, the fact we didn't know Mateo's surname at that point is maybe a suspicious thing on our end. Like maybe like Mateo, like, something weird's going on there. You know what I mean? Is there some ulterior motives? Now, come the end of the episode, it doesn't feel like it is. It just feels like it's going to be like this weird coincidence where there could be a clash later on. But, going into it, you think there might be some ulterior motives there. But Mateo isn't really turned off by what John's done and doesn't really take offense at all, which made me go, maybe he's got a plan, he's working for someone. But I don't think that's the case come the end of the episode, but we'll get to that eventually. But speaking of eventually doing something, John eventually comes around after a chat with Lana and apologizes to Mateo, with Mateo referencing his mother a couple of times and saying that she's really great and stuff like that. So I would assume there will be a run-in soon there with Mateo's mother and maybe John Henry, or at least someone like Natalie and Mateo's mother. Will that happen? Well, the end of the episode seems to suggest that, but once again, we'll get to that point later on. Now, Lois apologizes to Pia and sort of tries to return their friendship or mend their friendship to how it was, with it eventually being revealed to Lois that Bruno is Pia's husband. Obviously, this highlights the emotional push to Clark and Lois as to what Bruno has been doing, and this is still unknown to Lois and Clark, but this doesn't excuse the murder of the former Mayor Dean, and also they don't know that Pia is Onomatopoeia, and the one responsible for killing Mayor Dean, as well as almost killing Superman, or at least fighting Superman on a couple of different occasions. So when that gets revealed potentially, I think that's when the drama alert starts, and the offense from Superman specifically towards Bruno Mannheim might be kicked into overdrive. But that's a wait and see, because maybe that's never revealed to them. Maybe they'll never find that out. Who knows? Maybe just for us to know. I'm not too sure. Now, Jonathan and Jordan do find the end-of-life documents that we saw like last episode in the house, and they do confront Lois and Clark about it. Now, Jonathan sort of taps into the vulnerability aspects of things that were brought up last episode as well, and sort of not wanting things like this hidden anymore. And the family do sit down and talk about, the whole use of the Kryptonian tech to help, but how that, could be a risk, and that pretty much that they're just going to let, nature take its course for the most part, for better or for worse. Now, I think, you don't see Lois dying. So you see Lois surviving, but I think it's also, I think people were worried that they were going to introduce this serious storyline with the whole cancer and everything like that, and then do something where Lois, gets Kryptonian help or injects XK or whatever Bruno Mannheim's doing. And that's how she gets like magically cured, and sort of takes you out of that realism, because it's been a very realistic thing up to this point. And it seems like they're not going to do that, but it's just like you just don't see her dying. So does she just go through the cancer treatment as normal, or is it that risk of remission? I'm not too sure how things are going to, the cancer comes back, might I say, not remission exactly, but, the cancer comes back. Like, are they going to dive into that? I'm not too sure exactly what they're going to do, because setting it up is fine, but it's also the conclusion and how you deal with it come the end of it. So, I know, I'm curious to see what they do there. But the end scene of the episode, we do see Bruno and Pia back in Metropolis, with Pia being a bit drained out from the day, and us getting one final flashback for the episode, which reveals something pretty big. With Bruno being punished for his actions, he's sort of gone behind, I guess, Boss Moxie's back and some other people around Metropolis and tried to get their sides. And, he's going to be punished for it, mainly by death. With us seeing that Pia had her powers all along. She is, I guess, just a metahuman. She's just a metahuman. She's had these powers all along from back in the day, and she didn't get them from what Bruno has been doing through the cancer treatment and trying to get her better. But the bigger reveal, or maybe bigger confirmation of this scene, is that Mateo is Mateo Mannheim, their son. But they don't know that Natalie is Natalie Irons. So that's going to be a very interesting conflict there. And also, of course, we know that Onomatopoeia killed this Earth's John Henry, so I do wonder whether the next set of flashbacks we get is that. And we get how maybe there's conflict there, because they're going to not recognize Natalie, but if she says her name is Natalie Irons, potentially, I don't think she will, because was it Johnson, the name they used? It was like, I guess, John Henry Johnson, I guess. Was it Mr. Johnson? I think he used John Henry when Mateo came over. So I think if John Henry goes to meet Mateo's parents, not knowing who they are, and Natalie might not have any idea who they are either, because she's just new to this earth, I'm very intrigued to see what that conflict is like, or that first meeting there, but also any flashbacks that potentially tie to that, with the situation around this John Henry's, like this Earth's John Henry Irons' death back in the day. I'm very interested to see if we get that in flashbacks. We could potentially, but I don't know exactly if we will. Because we know what happened. We know that Onomatopoeia was the one that killed him, but we don't know exactly the whole setting around it, exactly how it played out, how long John worked for them and stuff like that. So I'm very, very, very interested to see how that plays into it. But that might be the whole Lex Luthor angle as well, because we know he worked with, or did work for, Lex Luthor also. I'm very intrigued by that, and I can't wait to see what they potentially do there. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like and it shows support. Let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comments section down below, and any theories and predictions you do have moving forward into next episode and later into the season. Any theories you have, always curious to read what you guys are thinking. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.